Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. In today's video, we're just going to be taking a look at this TRS-80 Model 1. This computer and the monitor that goes with it was donated to the channel by viewer Kevin, who was visiting Portland with his family, had driven all the way out here from Nebraska, and had brought me this machine along with another one, which I'll get to in a future video. So thank you very much for that. I believe that both of these are actually fully functional. So really what I'm going to be doing in this video is just opening them up and giving them a quick test. Just poke around inside and see if they're working and what the specs are. I also want to take this opportunity, if this Model 1 is the version that has 8 bits of video memory, so it has an extra chip added in. That's a mod that was done very commonly to enable lowercase support on the computer. If that was done, then I want to test my Diagnostic ROM, which I recently showed off on the Model 3 on this machine to see if it works. So let's dig in and we'll start with the Model 1. I need to open it up and take a look inside first. All right, so the Model 1, I haven't really talked about it very much. Oh, this one's in really, really nice shape. Has the original Radio Shack Service Center sticker, which has been broken at some point. But the bottom of the machine looks really, really clean. Now, I actually have a Model 1, and I don't really talk about it very much because I did work on it a long time ago. Basically, the Model 1 that I have, I got for free from a person in Portland here who was restoring an old pickup truck, an old Datsun pickup truck. And the funny thing is that pickup truck was found in the middle of a field out in the countryside somewhere here in the state and had been parked there forever. So it was a little bit rusty, but it kind of had a patina on it. I saw the truck, he had it there. But inside the back, it had a camper shell on it. There was a whole bunch of computer equipment. And he posted an ad on, I don't know, Craigslist or whatever, and just said, free stuff, come and get it. I'm just keeping track of the screw sizes. These are longer than I think these front two. So he said, come and get it. And there was just a couple pictures, and in one of the photos, it looked like there was a TRS-80 color computer 2, a Coco 2. I didn't see anything about a TRS-80 Model 1 or any of that kind of stuff. Anyhow, the stuff in the back of the truck, I went to his house, right, and he had everything out. The stuff in the back of the truck had been there for probably 10 years out in the elements, and that camper shell that was on there leaked very, very heavily. So all the stuff in the back of the truck had basically been subjected to water, rain. Wow, there's 3 different lengths of screws. So these are the shortest, then these are the medium, and then I guess these 2 are the longest. That is kind of crap. I guess I have to give Radio Shack a little bit of credit. Oh yeah, that's long as well. This was their first computer from 1977. How does this come apart? Okay, it's already coming apart. I think the cover comes off the top. I don't quite remember. Okay, anyways, back to the story. Wait, what are you holding on to? Oh, okay, the keypad, the number pad is holding on for dear life. Do I remember? Okay, so you can kind of see that the keypad here, which is, why is this holding on? All right, well, the keypad is basically an add-on. The original Model 1 didn't have the number pad, it just had a blank plate over here, and then they just added this on afterwards. Okay, there we go, it came off. It was just sort of stuck, and there are these little spacers here. They're kind of this sticky rubber, and they get cracked and fall apart over time. And on my other one, it's in really bad shape. Anyways, let me get back to my story really quick so I don't forget where I left off. So everything in the back of the truck, which included a Model 1, the computer, which is this, the monitor, the expansion interface, 3 floppy drives, all the cables and accessories, and then there was a bunch of other stuff like a Coco 2, color computer 2, there was PC motherboards, a bunch of like Apple 3.5-inch disk drives, all this stuff. It had all been so exposed to the weather. And of course, Oregon in the countryside in the summer gets really, really hot, like, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit or, in the 40s or low 40s Celsius. And in the winter, it's not normally below freezing, but it can be below freezing, but it rains a lot. And inside the back of the truck, which he had already cleaned out and taken all the stuff out of it when I got there, inside the computer and all the stuff was tons and tons of mud. So like dirt, I guess, had been accumulated. Maybe it was parked under a tree and like the tree leaves and stuff were falling in. I don't really know, but there was so much mud and everything. And I could tell the way it was all stacked in the back, it was kind of randomized where some things were constantly being filled up with water and other things not so much. So like the Model 1 computer that I have wasn't getting doused in tons of water all the time, but it still was very corroded inside. And if we move this, you'll see here, there's like this board with some ROM chips on it, and then this is a ribbon cable. This is the level 2 basic expansion thing. It adds an extra ROM chip for some more capabilities, and there's a little bit of wiring as well that goes with it. And that was in there, but it was all like not working. And this was before I was making videos. I got the computer working. It had, you know, some RAM faults and things. I was really inexperienced at troubleshooting at the time, and it had a lot of issues because of all the corrosion. Like stuff that you'd think it was working properly, but then it was like the ribbon cable from the ROM here was flaky. Like you touch it and it would crash. And anyways, it was very difficult to get working. The monitor had like an inch of mud in the bottom. And the way the CRT is held in is with this like metal band. It was completely rusty. So I had to kind of take all the metal parts out and then try to convert the rust away, you know, get rid of the rust and prime and paint everything. And it was a lot of work. So in the end, everything works, which is amazing actually. But it's not the most reliable machine because of all that corrosion. So Kevin had this extra Model 1 and the extra monitor, and he brought them to me so I can, you know, have something that's a little bit more reliable than that computer that I have. Now, luckily, of all that stuff that I got from the truck, the expansion interface, which is what plugs in to this slot right here, that adds extra memory because this only has, I think, 4K or 16K max inside this unit. That brings it up to 48K total. So it adds an extra 32K of RAM. It adds a disk drive interface, printer interface, and I think a serial interface. The one I have is like fully loaded. And luckily the expansion interface must have been stacked up on top of things because it wasn't full of mud and everything. It was still a little corroded and like the screws were completely rusted out and stuff. So like the moisture had gotten to it, but it works better than the machine does and the other stuff. The disk drives, I think I was able to save like one of the disk drives. The others were just, the bearings were seized, the cases were rusted. It was just a mess. But the guy gave it to me for free, which I'm very glad for because that was my first foray into TRS-80 land. And it's just neat to have something original. And obviously since then I have the YouTube channel now and you know, I'm making videos and stuff. So I want to kind of show this machine off a little bit and we'll see if it works. And I have no reason to believe it doesn't work because these are relatively reliable machines. Okay, camera is repositioned. So looking down at the machine, yep, like very good looking inside. So like I said, the number keypad is just extra. And yes, these buttons are soldered onto where the key switches are for these. So there's no difference between pushing like the 5 key here or the 5 key there. Enter and period, exactly the same. It literally is just wired right up to these key switches. You have 2 key switches for the same thing. And you can see that just sort of sits on there. That's the little spacer thing I was talking about. And if we move this, you can see this mod here, which I'm pretty sure my other one has as well. And let's just look. So this is 1978 Tandy Corporation. So this is an official mod from Radio Shack. The chips on the main board are all on the underside. This ribbon cable goes and plugs into the ROM socket. This board exists, and I think you can't really see it, but there are 4 extra wires that go to points on the motherboard, and that's really for, I don't know, chip select line, and also, well, there's probably this IC here doing chip select, which has a date code of 1978, by the way. So this is an old mod, and there's an extra address bus line you need, of course, because this ribbon cable here doesn't carry all the address lines to have access to all of these ROMs. So this is a 2332. I'm assuming this is 2332, and maybe this is as well. So that's 4K, 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 total of 12K. And the original motherboard, I think, has 2 ROM sockets. That maybe has a total of 8K of ROMs possible. This little mod down here, which I can't remember what this thing does exactly. This is not related to this, I don't think. And it's just like double-sided adhesive on there. And it's got these wires that run to various points. And yeah, I definitely remember on the one I got out of the truck. Like these wires had just come loose because of the corrosion, and oh, it was just, I had to kind of figure out what this mod was and reattach it in the correct space. Anyhow, let's get this thing apart, which isn't super easy because of course these wires are permanently attached. And the other thing to watch out for is the way the keyboard connects. It has a very flimsy, crappy ribbon cable that corrodes. And I remember on mine, I installed like a new set of pin headers here, and I used an IDE cable. It's only 20 pins, but an IDE cable, of course, half weren't gonna be used. And I just made a little IDE cable that looped around and replaced that. So that's one possible fix. The keyboard should just lift off, if I recall. Nope. Okay, let's think of how this works. Okay, I gotta take out the motherboard. It's been a while since I've opened up one of these. There we go. Okay, actually this is to hold down the heatsink. This is not related to holding the computer in. Okay, I remember I gotta take these spacers off. So there's one of the spacers. And I think the keyboard does have to lift out. Well, the whole motherboard will come out with it. That's kind of what I recall how this goes. Oh, no, there's a spacer underneath the keyboard here. Okay, I think the keyboard is mostly free. I just need to lift it up enough to get this little spacer out. Now, it's funny because these are actually supple and nice. Yeah, it's just sort of a rubbery material, and you can 3D print new ones. The one that I had, of course, those were completely toast. Okay, flipping this like here, we can see that there are more spacers. So they're kind of holding the motherboard in. Let's get a tool to get these out. Something that's not going to scratch things. My chip lifter tool. I'm honestly shocked that these are so nice and supple. I really, I've only worked on the only Model 1 I've ever worked on is the one that I have, which is a mess, right? So I've never really experienced these on how they should feel. And even though this machine is probably from 1978 or whatever, 1977, these are still nice and squishy. They're very stuck though, so just trying to free them up. There we go. Okay, there's that one. Now I'm being very careful here because of this ribbon cable. Don't want to dislodge that. And it doesn't have a connector. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right, there's one of them stuck on the keyboard. Come on. Okay, I'm going to try to put these in the order that they're on here. I don't know if they kind of need to go back in the correct orientation. Look, I can already see, let me move this back into the camera, some rework on this IC. That's kind of ugly. This thing here, which is a little sticky, this is the ROM board mod. That's besides the ribbon cable that plugs into one of the ROM sockets here. Okay, if we place the keyboard down gently, the motherboard should be free to come out of the case as a complete unit here. There it is. I'll just put these back where I found them. Oh, there was an extra one there. Okay. So like this. There's one down there, and there's one there. Okay. So that is all of the little spacers. Okay, so here's the Model 1. Let's flip this over gently. There it is, there it is. It looks so clean, so nice. Look at that. 1977, like original, what do they call it? The Triad or the Trinity, those first three computers, the Apple II, the Commodore PET 2001-8, and this. Okay, so let's take a quick look here. So what did I see the rework? The rework was this IC right here, which looks like it's a Motorola 1723CP. Looks like it's like a TI version of that chip, but I could see that one's been replaced. It's a bit ugly there. The power input on this is AC, so it converts the AC into the various voltage rails. So like there's a 5-volt regulator here. This is the screw I was accidentally taking out. That generates 5 volts for the board. There's also a negative 5 volt for the RAM, and there's also a positive 12 volts. This one here is probably the positive 12 volts. This will be the 5 volts, and there's a little regulator or something looking, that's probably the 5 volt one right there, or sorry, the minus 5 volt one. Although there are a couple little packages here, which also could be the minus 5 volts for the RAM as well. So as I mentioned, this here is the DRAM, and it's either 4K or I guess it could also be 16K. Now, are these the 16K RAM chips? I don't know. These are weird part numbers. I think the Radio Shack part numbers 804. 1016, I'm assuming because it's 16 is the end of the part number, those are the 16K chips. Let me try to find the video RAM on here. The fact that I don't see any piggyback chips, this must be the video RAM over here. Let's move this slightly. This looks like the video RAM. It's got 1K of video RAM. It's static RAM. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 chips. And it's missing the 8th chip. You have to piggyback onto one of these. And then you can add the 8th bit. All right, so that means this does not have the lowercase mod, so I cannot test out my diagnostic ROM. The reason why I can't test out the Diag ROM is because it uses the video RAM as the processor stack. And there's the Z80 processor right here. Unfortunately, I don't have any of these static RAM chips, which are 2102s, and so I can't do this mod right now. It's relatively simple. You stack a chip, bend a couple pins out, and you solder all the pins to it. Except for those extra pins, you got to run a couple wires and cut a trace, if I recall. And that brings this thing up to a full 8 bits of video memory. There's also a keyboard mod I think you have to do to enable like shift support on the keyboard. It doesn't support lowercase letters. But anyways, for now, this machine, it looks incredible. It's so pristine inside. I'll peel that off, just bothers me like that. And everything looks good. I'm just gonna give it a quick visual inspection just to make sure nothing looks out of the ordinary. While looking around, I am noticing the date codes on the soldered ICs are from 1978. 30th week, 36th week, 35, 40 weeks, so it's sort of later in the year 1978. These chips do say 1979 though on them. They seem to be the latest, so I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously someone's been in this machine to do various mods. They have probably put in these 16K RAM chips. And what's this here? I don't know, it has a Radio Shack part number. It's probably a bus transceiver or something like that in a socket. And then there are these little IC packs here. You can cut these for various options. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a mod you do here to tell it you have 16K versus 4 or something like that. Okay, I think I'm gonna put this thing back together so we can give it a test. Now, what's wild is Radio Shack, and notice that right there, they use the same 5-pin DIN for everything. Cassette, video, and power. So you can accidentally plug the wrong thing into the wrong thing. And I don't know if they were thinking properly when they did that, so that you didn't accidentally blow things up. It's very consumer unfriendly though, when it comes to making the system easy to use for regular folk. Okay, so there it is. We're ready to do the old flip here. Let's gently lower this back down into the case. So when the case is on, it will hold it all down like that. Okay, I'm not gonna screw the case in quite yet. We'll test this with the lid off. Here's a power supply. I just grabbed this out of the expansion interface because strangely enough, this is like the AC brick. That's for this computer. The expansion interface, which is an external box that plugs into this connector right here, it also uses one of these. So there's room inside of it to hold the one for this computer and one for the expansion interface. So I had 2 of these that came from the truck TRS-80, and Kevin didn't bring one of these with him, so I have to use this one. Let's take a look at the specs, just in case anyone is curious. It says 120 volts and then 19.8 volts DC out. And also it has 17 volts AC out on different pins. Weird, I never noticed that it's got 2 different DC or AC outputs, I'm sorry. So I mean, the reality is, if you have one of these and you're missing the power supply, it wouldn't be that difficult if you could get a Pico ATX that has all the various voltages this thing needs, -5, +12, +5. You could put it in here and then just have a barrel jack. You just have to remove the voltage regulators. That would be a quick and easy way to make this a little bit easier to use. Okay, trying to see which is the power connector. It is this one here, next to the power switch. And of course, it's just a really skimpy looking mains input. This connector right here appears to be the video connector. It's only got 2 pins that look like they're hooked up. I mean, there could be traces on the other side, but I have a feeling it's just these 2. And I'm gonna use like this 74LS logic chip down here to figure out what's what. So this bottom pin on the bottom right is always ground. So neither of these are ground, that's odd. And then how about this pin that's 5 volts is the top right pin. So we got 5 volts on there. Okay, there's the Handtech setup, 1 volt per division. I have the power hooked up. This thing should be ready for to go. Power, let me just power it up. Okay, that pin does jump right up to 5 volts. Very interesting. Let's check out this one here. Okay, that one is doing stuff. So now this reminds me of what's going on here. So this connector is actually 3 pins. There's the shield, like the surround of the DIN, that's ground. Then the pin I'm on right now is video, and we can see there's a video signal there. And the other one is just a pure 5 volts. Why 5 volts, you ask? Well, and that's because on that monitor, it's a TV conversion, and there's a little board inside there that actually has some circuitry on it that converts from, you know, whatever, computer composite video down to a TV type signal that feeds into the rest of the TV motherboard. And that little board needs like an isolated 5 volt power supply that's coming from the computer, and then that goes to the TV. So yeah, the computer actually supplies the 5 volts to the monitor. And the reason why I even know this is because the one I had to fix, the mud-filled monitor, the little board had problems with it, and the connector on it sort of plugs into the motherboard on the monitor, had cracked and had fallen apart, and there was all this rust, and the cable was messed up. So that's what's going on right here. But the cool thing is we are seeing a signal. Whether this is actually a working signal, let me make it a little bigger. There we go. I remember the video signal that comes out of this is very non-standard. Very, very non-standard. Trigger, let's move the trigger down. All right, well, hopefully you can see it, but that is probably some letters or numbers. Let's see if I type stuff. Do we get anything? No, not really getting anything either. So yeah, very non-standard type signal. I mean, it's not anything that would like be crazy and damage a monitor if you plug it into. We're at 500 millivolts per division, so it's like about 1.5 volts peak to peak. It's nothing crazy, but it is very non-standard. I do remember that. I'm gonna grab a regular composite monitor and I'm just gonna clip on right onto this thing. So we're gonna test this out without turning on that other monitor yet. And it's not that I don't trust Kevin for giving me like a working machine. I mean, there was no promise that whether this worked or not. I just like to test things out little by little before I kind of go hog wild and plug everything in together. All right, I have the Apple IIc monitor. I have it clipped on there as I think it should be. Power computer's off. Let's power this on. Uh-oh. That is a non-working system right there. Interesting. Let's wonder what happened here. Yeah. Okie dokie. Weird, because I certainly saw what looked like a working machine. Let's get the oscilloscope, not the oscilloscope. Let's first check the voltages. You know, I didn't do that yet. No, okay, I'm getting 5 volts, 4.86 coming out of that 5 volt pin on the video connector. I'm gonna go back to the oscilloscope here. I'm just gonna check out what we see on these pins now. All right, so I'm on what was the video signal. Uh-oh, yeah. I don't even know if that's showing up on the camera, but remember we were seeing all those pulses, those lines? That is not happening anymore. Yeah, it's about 60 hertz, that pulse. So we have lost the other pulse. The other pulse was there was a vertical sync and the horizontal sync pulse. It's gone. We're only getting a single pulse on that signal now. Let's see if these other pins are doing anything at all. No. 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 Okay, so there really is just one video pin, and it is that one, and it is no longer working. So this video, which was supposed to just be a quick test, has turned into a repair. Let's turn off the CRT there. Yeah, that is not working anymore. In addition, that one vertical sync pulse that we are getting is only 500 millivolts, and that is it. Now I'm assuming this would be just like the Model 3, and if the CPU were bad and wasn't initializing, you'd still be seeing all the garbage on screen, reading out of the video memory, because that video circuitry, it just runs all the time. It's not like it requires the CPU for setup. And we were seeing more pulses there. We were seeing horizontal and vertical, and I think some video stuff as well going on. And that has definitely left the building. One thing I am gonna try before we end this video, because this is all sort of a fail, is I'm just gonna hook up a clip lead here. And I'm just gonna clip onto the ground for the scope. We'll just change this back to 1 volt per division. Does that even show up in the camera? There we go. Not very well. I just wanna see if there's activity on these ROM chips. This would kind of indicate that the computer is actually working. So we'll power this up. Now there's certainly a lot of activity here. Let's change the time base. Okay, well, there's certainly activity. It doesn't look super good though. Looks like maybe there's a possible bus conflict, but it also just could be the bus floating, so not an actual issue. Yep, so anyways, these lower pins, I know you can't see what I'm doing, but there's stuff that's down at the bottom here, but I'd say that's just floating bus. And I'll tilt this so it's not having glare. Okay, so these lower pins on the ROM, that looks like data bus activity, and there's stuff that's down at the bottom. I'm saying that's gonna be floating. Let's pause this. Yeah, so we have lows, we have highs, and then we have stuff in the middle here, but I bet you that's just floating. So that's probably okay. Let's check these other chips here. Yeah, these all look the same. Of course, everything is paralleled up. And then up here is the address lines, and those look solid, really nice. Yeah, it really looks good. If I power cycle the computer, so it's off, on, there it is, it's running. Yep, so it appears to be trying to execute code. That doesn't mean it's working because all that TRS-80 Model 3 stuff I ran into could well be problems on this as well. But clearly the video output circuitry has gone and left the building and is no longer working, even though it literally was working a second ago, and now it's not. So I guess stay tuned for a TRS-80 Model 1 repair, because there'll be one in the future where I can actually try to see what's going on with this. And as I mentioned, it's really difficult to work on this machine because of the way that the keyboard can't be removed. It's such a pain. Not to mention all these wires and stuff that's soldered on here. That's like, it's precarious and flaky and stuff. Now I can be, and I'm almost 99% positive that this mod board here has nothing to do with the video output circuitry whatsoever. So it's not like this is gonna cause what's going on with the video output now. But yeah, I mean, you know, I have a thought. We should put my diagnostic ROM in here and then see if this thing beeps when I turn it on, which will tell us at least that it is actually running code. Yes, let's do that. I happen to have the diagnostic ROM right here. Now there are 3 chips here. This one is 843132. Then there's 3232B, 3232C. So I have a feeling that's the ROM A. This needs to go into the ROM A socket. So let's take out that chip. There we go. That came out pretty easily. By the way, people are like, why are you using a screwdriver to remove chips? This is not a screwdriver. This is designed to remove chips. Let me just pop in a little Deoxit to make it a little easier to go in and out. You know what? This may not work in there because of this connector there. It's not going to. Well, maybe it will. Let's just try. Nope, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna need to stack another socket underneath it. So there, I just stacked an extra socket to give it some more height. If I have to, I'll stack another one under there. Okay, there we go, that is in there. So I'm gonna scope the cassette output. Let's see which one of these is actually an output, if any. Nope. Okay, we're getting something on that pin. Okay, I'm gonna hook a speaker up to the pin I think is the actual beep. So even though the diagnostic ROM isn't gonna run properly on here because it's lacking all the video memory, it will still start running. Hi, this is Adrian while I'm editing. Just a side note that I recorded this video at the very early stages of the diagnostic ROM. We had barely done much with it. At this point right now, as I edit this video, the diagnostic ROM would actually work perfectly on the Model 1. It can totally handle the situation where you only have 7 bits of video memory. So keep your eyes peeled for a repair video where I use the new and improved version of the diagnostic ROM. Where's the speaker wire? Here it is, over here. It will start running and then we'll actually hear some beeps and boops. We're gonna hear the initial beep for the bootstrap. All right, so there we go, it's hooked up. And let's turn it on. There it is. Okay, so right there, that confirms that it's at least running. This machine is, you know, it may not be fully working, but it's running the diagnostic ROM. And even though I can't see anything, I definitely know for sure that it's executing code. Okay, well anyways, I've kind of gone on long enough. This is supposed to be a quick video. This machine needs a repair. I need to write a note for myself just to say video output not working, unknown about the rest of it. Maybe I can talk to David and Frank and we can make a modified ROM that could try to test this machine out a little bit. And maybe before I get the video working, we can use audio cues, like for good sound, bad sound, stuff like that, to test that the 7 bits of video RAM works. And then we can kind of do a memory test and just ignore a little piece of the DRAM where the stack is. So like, you know, start at 1000 or something. Anyways, lots of possibilities. That'll kind of tell us what more is working or not working in this machine, but I'm excited to know that it's at least running. The diagnostic code has been somewhat useful, and yeah, that's it. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, thumbs up. If you want to download the Diagnostic ROM, of course, I'll have links in the description. Plus, I'll link to my other video on the Model 3 repair, where I used this ROM successfully, because it fully works on that, to fix that computer, because it had issues. And with that ROM, I was able to figure out exactly what was wrong with it, which is why we created it. It's a big help. And yeah, thanks to Kevin for giving this to me. And that's going to be that. So stay healthy, stay safe. Oh, well, by the way, thanks for my patrons. Names are up the side of the screen somewhere. And that's it. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you next time.